My name is Alan Hughes. Welcome to UPTiiCK's video podcast. Today I am joined with Steve Smith, the CEO of the Xfc, the only publicly traded MMA organization. Steve, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So I've got to ask you, how did you come to lead the only publicly traded MMA organization in the world?
So that's kind of an interesting story. You know, the Xfc itself has had been in operation for really since 2006. That's when the company was started, and it actually took it ran through 2017 and produced Xfc 1 through Xfc 42. So 42 broadcast television, global fights really. And at the end of 2017, they kind of went on a hiatus, went kind of a little bit of a reorg. Their competitor, there's a few investors kind of shopping acquisitions of larger MMA organizations, and so ultimately the company reached out to me, and because of my specific background, having been an executive with World Wrestling Entertainment and my finance background. They asked me if I would get involved and kind of take over the leadership of the company and bring it back to the U.S. That was one of the big factors, since it was based in Brazil at that time. All the fights were live out of Brazil. I had owned another company that was very investor friendly for shareholders, for influencers, and I kind of thought that would be a good model for the environment. Taking care, kind of giving the fighters, giving the athletes more of an involvement in the era that we are now, 2020 being what it is. The sort of activist participants in sports and really just the culture that it is now makes more sense in my mind. You need to have your fighters, your talent, be sort of fully engaged in the company, and so we've gotten a great response.
So actually, that leads me to my next question. I understand every competitor at Xfc 43 was gifted with shares of Xfc stock, and I believe there was a bonus for the best fight, bonus shares for the best fight, or something along those lines. Explain that decision to me, and how was the idea received by the combatants?
So the idea really here is. All the other MMA companies are privately held companies and kind of lack sort of like the engagement that they could have by being a publicly traded company. So on one side, you have the bulk of our shareholders, which are the fans of MMA and specifically of the fighters and of the brand of XFC. And then the fighters themselves, their careers are kind of up and down over time. And what we chose to do was to compensate them with their market rate in terms of what they get paid from cash compensation for, and fighters really get paid to attend, so to be in the fight, and then we pay a bonus out to the winner. So part of that bonus, part of the for attending, has a stock compensation bonus basically tied to it. So it gives them a little bit more passion for the company, and to want to be with the company longer term. All of our fighters are signed to 2-year deals minimum, so they're with us for multi-fight deals, multi-year deals anyway. But we really want them out there being advocates for the company and engaging with the fans. I know the fans are very proud of I see many of them coming on our social media or live stream events when we've done Facebook sports events and chatting about, basically bragging that they have stock in XFC and how cool the company is and that kind of thing. And that's the culture that we're looking for.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, and you mentioned the fans. So with that hiatus that you had between 2008, I believe, was you had the biggest crowd in 2008, if I recall, for an MMA event. It was in Florida. What is your plan to replicate that kind of success going forward? Especially, there's so many distractions now, different sporting events and all kinds of stuff competing for everybody's attention.
So, it's an interesting time right now, and it has been for the last year as we've So really the last broadcast television fight that XFC produced was it's like December of 2017 on CBS, and a bunch of other global broadcasters that really were kind of make the main focus. So it was heavily internationally sort of positioned previously. The sort of like rebooted XFC is intended to be a global brand with roots in the US. We're sort of headquartered at the moment in Florida. I'm actually in Las Vegas right now, working out the details of some flagship operations we're going to be setting up here in Las Vegas that involve some very established partners, both in the MMA business and in the overall like sports entertainment business. We have a number of layers to the business. I would call them sort of like tournaments to some degree, but I kind of see them as circuits. So kind of the entry level point is a tryout point, which is kind of hosted by existing famous MMA company or former champions and things like that own elaborate MMA gyms kind of around the country and in Argentina and Brazil. So we do our kind of tryout events there. Those are mostly streamed on like Facebook Sports and that type of thing. The next level we have not really announced yet, but we'll be announcing shortly is what we're going to call Young Guns, basically Young Guns Qualifiers, and that's going to be a recurring fight. We are literally working out the details of for a studio here in Las Vegas as we speak, and that'll be most likely be a weekly show, and that's really kind of like the in-between place between somebody who's qualified and they're trying to get into our Young Guns tournament. Young Guns tournament is more a full audience show, and it is our younger fighters. So in XFC 43, the younger first two tiers of the fighters that were fighting there, they were the Young Guns. So they're not necessarily famous yet, but they're kicking a lot of ass. So they're up and comers, and so that's the Young Guns tournament. And then from there we go up to really XFC 44, and kind of that is the championship. That's the belt holding fights. Those are what was televised on NBC Sports and what was televised on major broadcasters recurringly. The last one really, which is we call the marquee, is a new launch. It's Xtreme Fighting Series XFS. It was the center sponsor of the XFC 43 at the event. That is our pay-per-view business, and that is really working more with established champions. Can't really announce who's going to be fighting in that at this point, but there is definitely plans, and it's a little bit more open-ended and a little bit more creative, right? So we're talking pay-per-view basis, and that may include some champions that a lot of names that you would know in terms of like the average consumer would know, not just an MMA fan. And we might mix in some boxers from there and some just things that are interesting for fans from Xtreme Fighting Series kind of perspective, that we really want to kind of spice things up in this space because it's been a little bit too Disney-fied over the last 5 years. So we're wanting to kind of like give the public, give the fans something different to look at. And there's really not a third-party body that other than normal standard regulators that are going to control kind of like the content that we can use, particularly the pay-per-view environment.
Yeah, I liked the Young Guns component in XFC 43. You really need an old guns. So guys like me, who's one sandwich away from dad bod, can get in there. What about that?
We can put that in the pay-per-view, maybe. I don't know. I mean, you just saw the Mike Tyson fight. I mean, that was one sandwich away right there for sure.
It's not for me yet. So yeah. With the hiatus, was there any concern that the fans may have moved on, or was there a strategy specifically to address the fact that you've been sort of out of the public attention for so long?
So, it was really on hiatus there for a couple of years. And, it's always a concern when a brand, takes a break and stops producing content for an extended period of time. I think that it did, in fact, though, give us a time to, for me to kind of come in as new management and sort of make some strategic decisions in terms of like reanalyzing what the public really is looking for realistically, and what's what can be done, what can't be done, what's the current environment, and on the upside, we had sustained, I think it was right around 500,000 Facebook followers, for example, that were still engaged, even though there hadn't really been any content out for like 2 years. So we did some tryout events and kind of like, I guess, put our toe in the water in terms of finding out how much fan base was still interested there. Thankfully, many of the current championships, like belt holders in the UFC, had formerly been champions of the XFC prior to its hiatus, so they're still very much center stage in the world of MMA. They've been very forthcoming with supporting the return of the XFC. We haven't really had too many haters, I'd say, in kind of the plans to return and the actual return. I'd love to get some of our fighters back from UFC, which we shall see. I know there's a number of rumors running around out there about Anderson Silva, which he's done a few interviews about his involvement with us, and a number of others. So UFC is kind of on they're trimming their roster, and hopefully they do us a few favors and let a few of the guys that we want back come back.
So XFC 43, was it a success for you guys? What are the metrics that you look at, and were they hit?
I think that it's like a relaunch event. So as far as we've seen so far, every metric that we can look at has shown great results, amazing results, actually far beyond expectation results. And kind of lucky for us, we were able to come back to the world sort of through a big partnership with NBC Universal. So in the US we were on NBC Sports and on Telemundo. That gave us 2 languages, and in North America it kind of gobbles up the majority of the audience. And it was on Veterans Day, so we had a good day. We had a great fight, which was the most important part. And so thanks to our fighters for really bringing it to that end. And then we did our pay-per-view portion of that event internationally through Fight TV, which got great results. The undercard was free, and then the pay-per-view, it was like $10 a month, or $10 to do the pay-per-view portion of that fight if you are getting access through our kind of broadcast partners. Internationally, we picked up, I think, about 35 different broadcasters worldwide, including the number 1 broadcaster in Brazil. And then post-fight, we had some countries that had not picked it up, Germany being one. That's a few press releases about some countries that didn't really have access to it, and those broadcasters picked it up as well. So I'd say one of the most interesting metrics, there's a lot of different metrics you can look at in terms of eyeballs and kind of like just and engagement rates. But I'd say we have a partner called GoTV, which it's GoTV HD, which we are sort of kind of in beta. But we have an XFC channel that's launched on that platform, and the CEO of that company was the first to contact me first thing in the morning prior, continually calling my phone until I picked up, and to let us know that we had right around almost 300,000 downloads of their app during the XFC fight, and that was astronomically higher than anything else they had been to drive downloads of their app. And it's a obviously it's organic to some degree, since we have an XFC channel on there that was kind of launching in the midst of it. But what you really have as a net result of that is about 300,000 people were engaged enough to go download an app so that they get access to an XFC channel and watch more of our content. And I think that's probably the most important metric to come out of it.
Now, you mentioned Telemundo. Is Latin America where you see the greatest opportunity overseas?
I see the whole world as a great opportunity. I think Latin America was the former really focus of of XFC. They have a studio permanently built in Brazil, and that was about 10 years of really like production out of Brazil. So the three languages that really, if you look at our social media demographics, it's roughly split 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 English speaking, Spanish speaking, and Portuguese speaking. So that Portuguese portion is really that Brazil and South America portion. We are, however, taking all of the content that we have, about 250 hours of live sports action content, actual fights, and having it all converted into all three languages. New commentators, or actually the old commentators, just doing it in multiple languages. So we have versions of all of our content in all three languages, and able to do that and distribute, developing an XFC channel out through other platforms that will give us a global footprint. And there is historically a very high engagement rate with Latin America for MMA fighting, and we obviously are going to work with Telemundo and other broadcasters and other partners in general to optimize that and keep them engaged.
So was there any concern with hosting a bigger live events in 2020, given everything that's happening? And what were some of the precautions that were taken?
So there was a lot of concern about that. Absolutely. It really pushed the event back a couple of months, maybe 2 months later than we had initially planned to do it. Obviously, when we were planning, there more than a year of time went into planning on the return of XFC, and during that year, COVID decided to show up and kind of change the world for everyone. Fortunately for us, combat sports was kind of graced with the ability to still produce events. So from a political perspective, we were, I'd say, one of the fortunate few that were able to be approved by government regulatory bodies. And we ultimately went with the state of Georgia, close to Florida. It's COVID kind of issues were somewhat minimal there at the time, and the commission there that approved both myself and our organization to be able to do ongoing fights. They have provided a protocol that they approved for COVID, so we were able to really like follow that protocol. It added in a good extra week of just production time in terms of getting the fighters there, and we had to quarantine a hotel, and there's a number of things that are extra things you normally wouldn't have to do, but I felt like it was more valuable to get the event produced and get relaunched, rather than wait for the era, whatever timeline the world decides that things are going to be sort of going back to the quote unquote normal. If that ever even happens, our business is going to wait for that. We're going to work through it and provide people with entertainment. Yeah,
it's like the old investing adage: don't try to time the market. If you've got something that's ready to go out there, or you're ready to buy or ready to sell, do it when you're ready, when it makes sense. But you have an event tentatively, I think I read, scheduled for February. Is that correct?
We are working towards the February date. It is tentative. There we have, with any kind of a relaunch at this scale, you kind of go from working an uphill kind of battle of relaunching something, and then once the the show is out there and the business is kind of out in everyone's face, then there's a multitude of requests for. So now we've got a laundry list of probably 100 different places that would like us to do an XFC fight in multiple countries, and some are easier than others to actually execute, or the travel situations. So we are sort of sorting out which events, which layer of events we're going to do next, and what order, and what that timeline is going to be. I think as a minimum, we're going to do a Young Guns event, most likely in Oklahoma City, at a brand new venue that's really aggressive about bringing this out there. So that's kind of on the short list. But as I am in Vegas, and there is a lot of new activity happening out here in Vegas in terms of requests for XFC from very influential folks, If we move in the direction of producing this weekly show, then that might take priority over more one-off events, because the frequency of doing a weekly show is a big commitment and will require a lot of resources, kind of like in one location. But it also ultimately, they keep changing the rules. The COVID era here, every time you turn around, something's changed again. So if venues are not allowed to be venues, then we can't. I mean, that was a big question mark in Georgia and Atlanta. I mean, we produced that event at the Tabernacle. They hadn't had an event at the Tabernacle for 8 months. We were the first one, and we had fans, 400 fans that were approved by the state. I think they have now since shut that down again, though. So I don't know that we could even do that event again in the foreseeable future.
Yeah, so I guess there's nothing you can really tease us with for XFC 44. A little early, or can you give us a little something?
I can tell you, everybody who fought for me in XFC 43 did an amazing job. We had really no complaints from any of the fighters. Several of them are going to be featured in at least a couple of them are going to be rematches, which I think is awesome. And right now, I can't disclose just yet who's going to be fighting. I can tell you it is most likely to be Oklahoma City. It is most likely to be in February, and we are hoping. Well, there's a chance. I'll teach you something. Our Extreme Fight series may launch before that. So that is the something we've been working on for quite a while, and we've come to an arrangement on. It would appear the names are very, very large, and I definitely cannot mention them on this interview, but
I had to try.
but we could follow up, and once we're ready to announce, which could be next week, on both the pay-per-view side of things for certain. They're I'm going to go to California for meetings, but you can't do any events in California, so it's kind of like, it's one of the largest markets in the world, but you can't really do anything there, and it's basically shut down completely. Then you go to a place like Oklahoma City, that's not a large market, so it's really about the broadcast side of that equation, right? So there's venues based events, which are heavily driven by ticket sales and kind of that aspect of the business. Oklahoma City has that ability in that market, but then there's really center stage. We have a very large pay-per-view, probably the largest that's really been done in a decade, that is waiting to be done. And the venues we keep working out to do it in, the ticket sale numbers keep changing, and so it just puts us in a place where we reevaluate it every 30 days, unfortunately.
So all that is to say, there's a lot up in the air, and you're not giving me that little nugget I was looking for. Okay, no, I understand. So, last question. Well, two questions actually. I know you got the cool XFC swag. Now, I know shareholders of XFC stock, they have. Well, tell me about it. I know they have access to certain things that non-shareholders don't. Tell me about it.
We do. So we have a series of merchandise. Some of it is event based. There's a store on xfcmma.net to be able to buy merchandise, and we're kind of continually working through what those merchandise lines are, the uniqueness of them, what's special about them. And then we have very specific shareholder benefits, basically a perk. So if shareholders have access to a different set of like a hat and a T-shirt, and also access at events to kind of like a VIP type experience. Those are some of the things we're very shareholder friendly, right? There's going to be a number of other things that we do on an ongoing basis that are kind of shareholder specific, meet and greets with our talent and those kinds of things. So that's something that we really think is a good idea, and it goes with our overall branding strategy of being a fan based or fan owned and fighter owned business and being a public company.
I love it. So last question. Yeah, one of the things I always like is when a fighter comes out to some song that's got you really pumped, and he's ready to go. What would your song be?
What would my song be?
What song would you come out to that,
You know,
that epitomizes what you are and what you're ready to do?
DMX has that song. I think it's the hook of that song is X gonna give it to you. So I want to steal that from him, and we don't have the license for it currently, but I wouldn't be against having DMX performing at our pay-per-view event, and I walk out there and maybe do a little dance. I don't know, that's definitely gets the blood flowing. And I thought you were actually going to ask about the fighters' songs, because we're actually doing something different with our fighters in that they all ultimately are having their own songs produced, so that when they come into walk into the hexagon, whatever event, they have their own song. They have and it's an original song. So,
but you would have DMX respect old school hip hop. I dig it. It's cool. Hey, Steve, man, thanks for joining us. I appreciate your time, and if I don't catch up with you, have a wonderful holiday season.
I appreciate it. You too.
All right, take care.